Okay, so I've been on somewhat of a hiatus with this channel, but I had to come back to talk about Charli XCX's fifth and final album with Atlantic Records under contract. Many of you guys joined this channel because you found all of the videos that I made recapping Charli XCX's every project so far. Each one has been really unique and it showcases Charli's versatility as an artist, and Crash is no exception. Crash distinguishes itself from Charli's earlier works by breaking her hyperpop release streak that started all the way back in 2016 with the release of Vroom Vroom. Instead, it leans on more traditional and classic pop influences. Charli pays a lot of homage to the 80s, not only in the music itself, but also the visual choices, from her new logo to the singles arts to the videos themselves. Long before any of the singles dropped, many insiders and leakers referred to this gestating project as the Janet album, Janet being the one and only Janet Jackson. Before the album was released, we got 4 different singles, which I'll recap here. The album rollout began with the release of Good Ones back in September of last year. Good Ones set the tone for the era with its very synthy, slick, Oscar Holter production and a stunning music video that more or less set up the storyline for the era. This era is iconically enough a somewhat satirical take on the kind of music Atlantic Records has been badgering Charli to do for years. A second single, New Shapes, featuring Christine and the Queens and Caroline Polachek, dropped in November, doubling down on the 80s influences. I personally love this collaboration and view it as the best of the 4 singles released so far. The music video, which itself is a parody to Awful Late Night Show host, was a really fun touch to the lore of the era. All 3 artists really get their chance to shine on this track. They get to actually use their individual voices, and their lyrics actually sound like something they wrote, which is really nice. Beg For You was the 3rd single, and it features one of my favorite artists, Rina Sawayama. Sampling the iconic Cry For You by September, this track really evokes the bubblegum pop realness of the early 2000s. Lyrically, it continues the theme of heartbreak the other 2 tracks had, and in the context of the record itself, it's actually a very strong track when it's not presented as a single. To be honest, it did take a while for me for this song to really click with me. The music video for this track more or less confirmed that Charli was telling the classic narrative of selling your soul to the devil for success, in this case selling your soul to a record label, as the main story of the record. The last mainstream single off this album before its release was Baby. This sultry track is possibly the most modern sounding track of the singles. The repetition in the chorus is classic Charli, and the music video and the choreo are some of Charli's best to date. It did spark minor controversy when Charli herself responded to a fan who shared their concerns about this era. It got really ugly really fast. After hearing the album in full, I can say that this album is a really well crafted and fun album that's really just made for touring and performing. This is her sellout album, she's fully aware and confident about it, and it demonstrates that she could have easily been one of the main pop girlies if she so wanted to be one. Charli still has the goods when it comes to crafting really smart choruses that get stuck in your head. I'm gonna briefly talk about each album track that I have not been able to talk about yet before assigning this album a final score. The title track Crash is not only a brilliant intro to the album, but it reminded me of Future Nostalgia's title track. Not really sonically or lyrically, but it's a really good tone setter. Produced with A.G. Cook and the drummer of the 1975, Charli serves a very 80s influence banger that I think Janet would honestly be proud to lay vocals on. It's still glitchy and modern towards the end to remind us that this is a Charli XCX record, but it really lays into New Shapes very gracefully. Constant Repeat follows after Good Ones, and it's honestly one of my unexpected favorites off the album. The instrumental is the right level of throwbacky yet forward sounding. Charli is on the top of her game, not with just one, but 2 really good hooks throughout the song. Lyrically, this song really fits into Charli's already growing collection of kiss-off anthems. It actually reminded me of Number One Angel's Blame It On You thematically. Vocally, Charli sounds silky smooth and in control of the beat. The outro makes the song for me, and I can't wait to see her do a live dance break to it. Move Me is right in between Beg For You and Baby, and it's a very low-key track that reminded me of Waterfall off XCX World. The vocal layering on this track is top-notch. There's something about her vocals on this track that really saves it for me because it was not my favorite initially. The track really does pick up towards the end with the refrains. It's definitely a grower. I just want to talk about Lightning for like a hot minute because this is my current favorite just off the account that it's the longest, most developed track off the record. It reminds me of her music from the true romance era, but it's infused with this era's sort of like continuity and soundscape. There's no coincidence in that because Ariel Rechtshaid, who worked on most of True Romance, returned for this track along with Ilya. I hate to say it, but I do think that this is a career highlight. I just think that it's a tour de force of emotions and vibes. I feel like the breakdown before the final chorus is one of the most thrilling arrangements that she's done since Pop 2. Every Rule was dropped the week of the album's release, produced by A.G. Cook and OPN. This is the ballad off the record, and Charli mentioned in an interview that this one was written about her ex, who was actually the muse of her last record, How I'm Feeling Now. The lyrics are vivid, the vocals are so tender that they melt into this very dreamy, throwbacky instrumental. Regardless of how you feel about this track, I feel like it was important to put this here just so that we have a taste of Charli's versatility as an artist. You really can't deny that the instrumental isn't amazing. It's truly the best part of this track. Yuck is the most radio-friendly, sellout, made-for-TikTok song off the record. It reminds me of Say So instrumentally, and while I should hate the song, I love it so fucking much. It is in my top 5 off this record. The lyrics are just so smooth and charming, and so Charli that it actually works. There's some bad bitch energy on the chorus. The transitioning from the verse to the pre-chorus to the chorus itself, this is immaculate. This is how you do a sellout song. Used to Know Me was a really mixed bag for me on my first listen. Initially, I really didn't like the song. I felt like sampling Robin's Show Me Love really cheapened the track. But in the context of listening to this as a satirical record, its artificial shallowness in lyrics and content ends up being brilliant. Yuck, which came before, was pretty much the TikTok song, whereas this one was a cheesy look at artists who rely on samples to make fun, harmless, but biteless music. I think in a club setting, this would definitely kill though. Charli has always been amazing at closing out her albums, and Twice is no exception to this standard edition of the record. A deluxe is coming soon apparently. This is the closest to pre-Crash Charli that we have on this record, but the instrumental is just so cute and bubbly. This is bubblegum pop perfection, yet the lyrics on this track are the deepest, touching on the shortness of life and appreciating the moments that you have before they come to pass. I think of the song as her tribute to Sophie, who tragically passed away last year unexpectedly. The ascension in the final section of the song makes me think of ascending to heaven. It is such a beautiful closer, and it has such a powerful message, and if it were not for Lightning, this would be my favorite track off the record. It's definitely top 2 material for me. If I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't sure how this era was gonna end up. The singles, while great, did not really prepare me for this album, but Charli really did it again and presented a pretty slick, almost fillerless album. You normally listen to a record and realize the singles are the best, but here I found that the deep cuts are so much stronger and more realized. Most, if not all of the tracks feel cohesive yet distinct enough to stand on their own. I feel like the deluxe is going to add some bulk for people who felt like it was too short. It was a bit short, to be honest. I'd have to give this album a very solid 8.7 out of 10, and a definite recommendation to go listen to. Before I go, I really want to plug in my new newsletter on Substack that's totally free and just a weekly article about music and pop culture from my perspective. I'll be posting the written versions of any reviews that I do on here in the future, and when the deluxe version of Crash drops, you can definitely read my thoughts on there. So definitely check that out. Subscribe to that, please. It would mean a lot to me. And thank you so much for watching. And yes, I will try to be back more frequently throughout the year. I did have to take a break because I moved to LA, but I'm all settled and it's nice to be back. And leave a comment below letting me know what your favorite tracks are. Shout out to my subscribers and anyone who's still a member on this channel. Thank you so much, guys.